I have the pleasure of being joined today by Stephen Wallace. Stephen is the co-founder of Australia's largest tech networking event, BeerOps. Stephen, great to see you. Thanks for making time to join me.
It's always a pleasure to meet and talk with you, Des.
Thank you. And we have had many good stories over Luxars, which we'll talk about in a minute. So for folks, for those tuned in, thanks for joining us. We're going to have a conversation today with Stephen around who he is, what he does, where he's come from, and specifically talk about BeerOps and where it's come from, how it was formed, and we're also going to talk about some of the sister events around it, particularly ExecOps. And then we're going to tease you with one called GradOps coming soon. Stephen, to kick us off, why don't you give us a 30,000 foot overview of kind of who you are, where you've been, what your career path's like, a little bit of your academic history, if you like, and just a little bit of a get to know you for those who have probably heard about you, but don't know you as well as we'd like them to.
So, Stephen Wallace, he comes all the way from sunny Scotland. As you can probably tell by the accent, the Scots don't give away anything, let alone their accent. You've got to keep that in mind. So I've been in the country now for about 25 years, and I got into DevOps, automation, completely by accident. I was working for a consulting company. They asked me, "Hey, you know a little bit about system administration?" But yeah, I know a little bit. Well, that's fine. You'll be the main automation guy in that case. And that's literally my decision for getting into DevOps. So, not knowing very much about all the sort of tooling, I got it. I decided it'd be a good idea to go and try and help with one of the local meetup groups. I had this dastardly plan that I was going to become a contractor and earn billions of dollars in cash, billions and billions of dollars.
We've
So
all been there once.
the theory was if I go down and help at the meetup groups, then people are going to see me. They're going to think that guy must know what he's talking about. I'm going to offer him sackfuls of cash in exchange for completing contracts for us. Anyway, so I did that. It was a bit of fun, getting up front. You're seeing an awful lot of people. You get the opportunity to help and connect with the community, which really sort of synced in with my values. Carried on doing that, got under my skin a bit, opened up a few more meetup groups. Started to get a bit tired trying to sort of live a life. I had an autistic son that came along during all this sort of period, so there was a bit of work there as well. So decided to try and get a bit of a team together, people that shared the same values. So that's actually where I met the other co-founder, Gerhard. Gerhard came along and helped us to do a lot of the meetup groups as well, spread a bit of the love. We gave a couple of guys a bit of a hand to run a sort of social networking event at one of the pubs in Sydney. And they weren't particularly keen about doing a second one, but Gerhard and I sort of went, hang on, that was actually a bit of fun. So we came up with this hypothesis that we could only maybe break down some of the barriers between some of the tech silos. Maybe if we managed to get a couple of sponsors to come along and maybe pay for a slice of nutritious and delicious pizza, perhaps, and maybe a cool beverage of
A
choice.
couple of cold beverages.
So that's exactly the experiment that we're still running today. It's been reasonably successful over the last 10 years. I think for the last season, we had in the order of about 10,000 registrations to come along to our BeerOps event that we hold nationally. I mean, the experiment continues, but it seems to be going okay so far.
Yeah, it's quite the experiment. I think there's no doubt whatsoever that it's a huge success. The original idea that you gave birth to over a decade ago is now well and truly matured and evolved, and so much so that it's carved off one, if not two more events we'll get to in a moment. When we think about beer ops, one thing I wanted to highlight, it comes up quite often when people ask me about it, is it all about beer? And I'm like, no, that's just the moniker around it. And that kind of goes into the whole free as in beer kind of concept, which is a very American idea, but we'll get into that another time. But if you're like me and you don't drink alcohol, there are plenty of non-alcoholic beverages and mineral water and lemonade and whatnot, and lots of tasty treats. But I do like the concept that it is a tech networking event, and it is a great way to come along and meet birds of a feather. And when I came along, the thing that really impressed me, which I'm going to get you to delve into in a moment, is that kind of inclusivity element. And I know there's a big DEI element, which is great, and that's fantastic. But I saw the inclusive element to be broader than that, and that is that the range of age groups, the types of job functions, job roles, and then the seniority levels. You've got everything from graduates all the way to CEOs who come along.
Yeah.
Walk us through the framework of kind of, without going into too much detail necessary, because there's a 10-year history that we can delve into separately, but like if you look at BeerOps today, from an attendee's point of view, because I'd like to come back to what a sponsor's involvement's like as well, but from an attendee's point of view, walk us through kind of what BeerOps is, what the structure is, what the experience is like. I've registered, I'm coming along, I walk in the front door. What do attendees sort of experience at the BeerOps events these days, nearly, what, 11 years down the path?
I think it probably takes a bit of a brave decision for some of these people, actually.
Right.
Knowing a little bit about the old Shakespearean temperament types, I think that, the developers are very melancholic people, meaning that they want to keep themselves to themselves, right? Just
Yeah.
as long as they don't have to deal with customers or other human beings, then they're perfectly happy, these people. So it's a bit of a sort of oxymoron that we've got a networking event for developers. Uh, Despite all this, when people come along, what we try and do is put them out of their comfort zone, and if they're prepared to go there, as in speak to five people who you have never met before. Now, the wait staff, of course, they don't necessarily count. And the whole paradigm and the whole concept that we try and encourage everybody to do is to introduce yourself. I know it's a big scary thing, and ask how you can be of service. Sounds a little bit weird, but if everybody does this, pins back your ears, just you use the mouth and the ears in the correct proportions, listen to what somebody else is asking for, is communicating about, and see if you can help them.
Right.
The golden nugget in there is that if you help enough people get what they want, then it's the facilitation of the speed of trust. That's a real mouthful. Well done, Stephen. I must try and say that again
I want to
sometime.
see that on a t-shirt. What was it? Facilitation of trust.
Yeah, the facilitation of the speed of trust,
The
right?
speed of trust. There you go.
Faster you can get to that point, the faster the trust will be there. People only do business with, and that's whether they're a sponsor or not, you only do business with people that you trust. So this is a way by which you can break that down. You can start that trust-filled relationship, and friendship can follow from there. Commerce can follow from there. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some of the things that we try and encourage people to do. Get out that comfort zone. Trust me, it's where all the magic is.
So I did that on top of my head. The facilitation of the speed of trust is FOTSOT.
You heard it here. Foxdot.com.
I
You heard it
want
here first.
FOTSOT.org on a t-shirt real soon. What that says to me though, Stephen,
It
I
started
mean,
here, folks. You are here.
exactly. You heard it here. I just coined a phrase, FOTSOT for BeerOps. Get into some BeerOps FOTSOT. Uh, if I was going to paraphrase that at the risk of being a little too sycophantic, to me it sounds like, you've created this amazing community. You've facilitated an open door policy where people can come and be very, very comfortable, whether an extrovert or an introvert. And I myself was very introverted when I was young and just had to head down on my Commodore 64 writing code rather than dealing with being out and about. But as you said, the more you got out to LAN parties or whatever else and met up people, the more you realized it was fun to do. I like that approach. I like the meet five people thing and see if you can help them, because to me that speaks to the pay it forward concept that I live by, which is, try and help more people and pay it forward. So, help someone, then ask them to help two other people and so forth. I like all of that. On the other side of the coin, you've got some partner sponsors who come along and help fund the whole thing and also bring value with regard to their booths and what they've got on show, whether they're doing demos or they're big subject matter experts or executives you can speak to. Walk us through kind of what that looks like, because I know you've got bronze, silver, and gold sort of tiers, but they generally have a similar structure and format with regard to their participation with a booth and a presence. If I'm a sponsor, uh, what is it that I bring to the table? How does that sort of look and feel? And what sort of engagement do the attendees have with me as a sponsor?
So the sponsors want different things, when they come along. Some of the people that we're dealing with, maybe they have rebranded and they want to get their new brand out there. Maybe they're just a startup, in which case they want to get their brand out there, like in front. Maybe they're going through some form of big. So if you hear some huffing and puffing, it's my doggy in the background here, not me
You and me
making funny
both.
noises.
I've got a puppy at my feet as well, mate.
It's not a metaphor.
No, no, definitely
No.
not. There is literally a
Yeah,
dog at
so
my feet.
like if you are like a CXO and you're thinking about embarking on some form of courageous journey, why not have a chat with your peers first of all?
Yep,
So that's why people come along to both BeerOps and also to ExecOps, which is where the senior technical executives hang out. It's about de-risking any decisions that you're going to make in the future. You can evaluate strategy. You can find out who the vendors are that are going to be able to help you by speaking to your peers in there, by speaking to the vendors. Maybe it's time for you to review which vendors you're actually working with. So it's another good way just to see who's out there with the same values,
yeah,
working
yeah.
in the community. There's so many. I mean, some people come along just to see if there are any hiring managers in the room. And yeah, there are. There's hiring managers. If you're looking to start the next conversation, for your next position or whatever, or you're looking for staff, it's a handy place, to do that as well. There's many and varied reasons why people come along. But most, of course, they want to try and make some cash, out of the end of it. And
They
the only
want to
way
do
you
some
make
business.
cash is
Yep,
by forging those relationships. It all
yep.
goes back to getting, what we affectionately term as getting belly to belly with your prospects, looking them in the eye and connecting with them at a human level, and then see where the commerce goes after that.
Indeed. I won't name them because we haven't published it yet, but the interview that I did today with one of your sponsors as the featured guest to talk about kind of their involvement in the Sydney event. This actually came up where we talked about the sort of pivot back from, lockdown and remote working, all that sort of stuff to now back in person, and how amazing it was to have these in-person events where we could get together physically, look the person in the face and actually have them in a 3D form as opposed to a flat 2D screen form. And actually get that tactile feedback of kind of, are they looking stressed? Are they breathing heavily? Do they look uncomfortable? How do I make them comfortable? All that real human stuff where for me, it sort of leans into that idea that people do business with people.
Mhm.
And it's very hard to sort of form a people relationship over a 2D flat screen, even though we're doing our best today.
Mm.
So I think there's a number of exciting things there. Uh, I wonder if you could maybe, before we get into ExecOps, maybe for our audience who probably haven't been overly aware or familiar with this, maybe just walk through the relationship that you and I have formed with regard to our organizations with BeerOps and Social, where we've sort of actually partnered to have my organization come on board as a media partner. Because one of the things that I'm really excited about is that my experience with the BeerOps event over the last couple of years is coming along, enjoying it, having a great time on the night, as it were. But I'd love you to share your take on kind of our partnership and kind of what we brought to the table to expand that experience before the event, after the event, and around the event, such that it is a broader experience for the folk involved, whether they can physically attend in person or they're taking part in a virtual sense, but also from a sponsor's point of view, that they're getting a much broader, deeper experience and engagement with the attendees or those who are in the ecosystem of the tens of thousands of members of your community.
Sure, sure. So, BeerOps, and all of the other events that we organize are all very much community run, community focused. And by that, I mean there's me, there's my beautiful wife Marquita, and we've got Gerhard, and we've got some team members in each of the states who all try to help where they can. Um, so marketing is one of those things. We did this experiment for quite a while, and it was more of a stealth marketing campaign that we did, whereby we told nobody about it.
I was going to say it was very stealthy.
We can now confirm that nobody comes along, and your audience doesn't get any bigger if you do that stealth marketing campaign. Okay, so I've already got the scars. I'm giving you that one for nothing. Take that one down.
You were very effective at
Don't
it.
do that. So it's always good to see if you can get into like a synergistic relationship with somebody that's really good at making a lot of strategic noise. And that's, of course, where you and I have been working very well. So one of the main problems that we have had with the events, um, we looked at the way the events were running. We looked there's no other similar events like BeerOps, which we're probably quite thankful for, but there's other events out there, technical events, and they all sort of seem to focus on all right, sponsors, come along. 5:30, you can come in, get your stuff unpacked. 6 o'clock, we're going to start. You grab a sandwich in the middle, and then we're finishing up at 9 o'clock. Thanks very much. We'll give you a bit of a shout out, on LinkedIn if we remember. So that is from an ROI perspective, that doesn't really sort of sit very well. So that's
Mm.
where it has to be said. These were some of the strategic ideas that were coming out of your brain, Des. And coming up with this, or you were agreeing that we had a problem there, and came up with this concept. Why don't we give these guys and gals weeks worth of value before the
Yep.
event by means of marketing? And then, of course, we've got the actual event, of course, as well, which is the stereotypical 4 hour window. And then why not give them some weeks worth of value afterwards as well? So it makes our offering, thanks to working with social, very unique and very, very powerful for our sponsors that have joined since we've now integrated your services. So very
Yeah.
thankful. And
The,
yeah, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. We've put together some new sponsor bundles, which have included a lot of the marketing offering. And it is resonating with the sponsors. So we're very grateful.
Indeed, and the feeling is entirely mutual. The thing that really excited me, having seen the event in person, was that you had a really great framework to build on, and it was a natural fit for us that if I brought our strengths to the table and you continued to grow your strengths, they were both able to build a bigger and better thing for both the attendees as well as the sponsors in a very natural format. And it didn't mean we have to necessarily change anything. We were able just to add them. It was kind of like you had the cake, we put a bit of icing on it, everyone got a slice. It was good fun. And, from my side of things, it's amazing to have the opportunity to work with you, to have feature your sponsors and so forth on our web TV show, put together some feature articles around them and publish those, and then promote them through digital and social platforms. And the engagement with those sponsors and the attendees who join the conversation through digital and social, whether it's comments and likes and reshares and whatnot. It's just been a lot of fun, and I can see that growing and growing. And I would love for folk who have any questions around that, particularly from what the sponsorship bundles now include, to reach out to you directly or myself and set up some Zoom calls or phone calls or meetings or chicken laksa lunches and have a conversation about that, because I think we're going to get bigger and better as we grow and expand on that, because we are still, sort of putting the building blocks in place this year. Next year is going to be bigger and better. And then at the risk of teasing people, we're looking at potentially some virtual events as well. Now, there's a sister event along with BeerOps, and I had a lot of fun with you, sort of looking at how we structure this, at the risk of giving it away. But when I first went to an ExecOps a couple of years ago, it was a great opportunity to get in the room, meet some people, have a beverage with them, and chat. A couple of years later now, ExecOps is a more evolved, more mature offering. Walk us through the overall structure of that, because I've got a bunch of questions for you on both sides of the coin, again, from the attendees' point of view and the sponsors' point of view. But walk us through kind of what ExecOps is now, 2 years down the path. Now we've gone through this sort of approach of restructuring how it works and putting a bit more framework around kind of what it offers, both sides of the coin from attendees and sponsors.
So pre
Gesundheit.
excuse me. Danke. Yeah, so previously, ExecOps was formed. We had a lot of senior technical executives in the room. We asked them whether it might be useful if we gave them a bit more sort of privacy so they can have some,
Yep.
interesting chats. So we did that. We started off with an ExecOps event, which was only 1 hour. So by the time people came on in, got the coat off, got the drink sorted out, it was just about ready to leave. So then we extended it out to an hour and a half. the feedback we got. It's still not long enough. So now what we've done, again, taking in, your advice, Des, on this one, is to host a more sort of formatted event whereby we have a panel event for the first 30 to 45 minutes. And this panel event, we surveyed the CXOs and asked them, what is it that has been keeping you awake? What do you anticipate is going to keep you awake going forward? And invariably they were mentioning things like cyber and AI, data, all the rest of that stuff. So we decided that the panel, we were going to have a couple of cyber rock stars, a couple of AI rock stars, which is exactly what we did. We've just held the event in Perth, for example, where we had the wonderful Hannah McKelvey, who's the cyber GM for Telstra Innovation. What an amazing lady, super, super smart, just like the global CISO Vanessa Van Beek from Fortescue Metals. Just amazing. They give so much good advice that they were prepared to share. So we're doing exactly the same again for the events coming up in another month or so's time. We're going to be getting some rock stars out. I'm not going to give you the names, but we've got two heads of data, head of AI, for two of the major banks that are going to be up on stage. Uh, from a sponsor perspective, you mentioned there is some amazing opportunities to get in and rub shoulders with some very, very senior people. I'm not meaning that they're old bastards. Can you believe that? And I can't say
Look,
that.
I'm an old bastard, so I'm happy to wear that moniker. It's I've got all the scars and the badges that I've earned over those years. But no,
Yeah,
there's some
exactly.
very, very senior roles and very, very deep, wide industry groups you've got in there. I've enjoyed them so far, and I'm looking forward to this
Yeah.
year's as well.
I mean, it's no mucking around.
Mm,
What other environments do you get to rub shoulders with, CTOs from Big Four banks?
yep.
Because they have been along to the event. Actually, the blue one, I'm not sure has. The rest of them have.
Right, right.
Anyway, so from a sponsor perspective, there's the most amazing opportunities. Like if we have a sponsor that have got an on-staff rock star in that field, there's absolutely no reason why they can't participate up on stage with the microphone, and they'll be able to validate that they're in a position of thought leadership in
Yep.
front of two to 300 senior technical executives. There's just not the opportunity to be able to do that. And yeah, we think that we offer very, very, very good value, when it comes to actually paying for that. And we're very thankful that they do pay for it because we host in very small venues like Marvel Stadium in Melbourne. You've probably never heard of it before.
It only
It's
hosts 75,000 people. Yeah.
it's enormous, and they give some fantastic service. But my God, they're running a business as well, which we need to pay for.
Yeah, the thing that really struck me when we sort of put this thing together with regard to the 2025 format for ExecOps was we were able to take the best parts of every other event we'd all been to and put them together and make it just a fun, comfortable experience, but also then, as you said, put thought leadership at the front of the room, have thought leadership also in the room with questions, and then have that sort of mingling and conversations and, rubbing elbows, as it were, afterwards. So I loved the idea of having this great panel at the front of thought leadership. As you said, across all the big things, AI, big data, cloud, cybersecurity, analytics, you name it, infrastructure, hyperscalers, data centers, um, and then have them have a conversation that's hosted and moderated in the format that we're all used to and enjoy, which is a hosted and moderated panel conversation with subject matter experts authoritatively talking about who they are, what they do. As you said, we've global CISOs for the likes of Fortescue, and folk who are from people like Cloudflare and Telstra. I think we had was it Hannah McKelvin? You said that from the cybersecurity innovation general manager at Telstra, and Catherine Dawson, who is the solutions engineer for Cloudflare. Some amazing people that you would probably never get the opportunity to sit next to and have a conversation with. But here they are, they're in the front of the room, having a conversation on the panel. But then you can walk up and ask them a question one on one if you're not keen to put your hand up in front of the room full of people. But what I did like is those people who did put their hand up and ask questions, invariably, 80% of the room was interested in knowing the answer to that. We all had common pain points, buying decisions, investment needs, or whatever. There was a lot of commonality. So I love that format of having that up front, setting the sort of the themes and the tones for the room, breaking out some of the Q&A afterwards, and then being able to walk around and actually introduce yourself and even potentially connect on LinkedIn saying, hey, great conversation, really enjoyed that. I've got a few things I'd like to chat about. Can I connect on LinkedIn, or can we catch up next week for whatever the case may be? And I know for a fact, half a dozen people I follow up myself with have then gone on and done some business together, or met and discussed, mutual problems and opportunities. And I think those are the things that more than anything jumped out at me with what you've been able to achieve so far with the two events in Brisbane and Perth. And I know with the remaining two events in Melbourne and Sydney coming up in October, that we're going to see not just a repeat of that, but it's going to expand and grow as well. You also have, oh, yeah, sorry, go.
Just one thing, I was like, this has just spun to mind, and not everybody knows this, but to get into these wonderful events and rub shoulders and do all the rest of that stuff, it costs absolutely nothing for the attendee.
Yeah, there's a
Absolutely
100% discount.
100% discount. You're right. And it hurts me every time I say that. It must be because I'm Scottish again.
The 100% discount special code FREE. Well, the interesting thing about that is when you look at what BeerOps offers, what ExecOps offers, and then we'll talk about GradOps very briefly in a moment, is that it removes the barrier to entry for the attendees that you want in the room, those people who are actively operationally developing code, implementing systems, securing systems, managing hyperscaler environments, running low code, no code distribution, and running Kubernetes and Docker clusters. People who are hands-on keyboard doing things can talk to the vendors who can help them with their tools and systems and infrastructure, solve problems as they're doing those things. But there's no barrier to entry other than 30 seconds filling in a form to say, I want to come along and register free. And that I think is very unique because when I look at, and I'm not going to pick on any brands in particular, but when I look at the top 5 big events I go to every year, they're $1,400 each just to get there. And invariably, I've got to travel and fly there. And then I've got to put up, some accommodation. And I've got taxis and transport and transfers and food. And I'm $7, $8, $9,000 out of pocket just to go to an event to talk to these very brands that I want to speak to. I love the fact that I could quite literally register for free, waddle across town, walk in the front door, get my little wristband, and away I go. Someone handed me a beverage, someone handed me a snack, and I was talking directly to you, could be a sponsor, about something of interest to me. And that, for me, I think is a game changer when we think about some of the other events, because the way you've structured it is that you've got great sponsor partners funding this at good rates and they're getting good value. But the attendees can come along with their big questions, their big problems to solve, and there's no barrier to entry to them. And I think that's a really unique element. Now, you've got a third thing, which we'll just talk very briefly on. I want to tease people with it, but I think we'll do another whole conversation around it because it's a very unique, bespoke vertical. GradOps. Firstly, what the heck is GradOps?
I've said too much already. So GradOps is our way of helping another increasing demographic in the room. So historically, we've had quite a few students, and the sort of early career people, the sort of 0 to 2 year,
Yep.
which it because of the numbers of people that are in the room, we thought it would be much easier if we can put them into a different flow. So what we've done is we have created this GradOps concept, excuse me, and we're redirecting all of those early career people to register there. This is an area whereby they're going to be removed from BeerOps, which is a far less relevant environment for them at that particular point of their experience in their lifetime. So they're going to go down to GradOps where we can get inside their heads. We can help them as much as possible. We can redirect all of the sponsors who have got grad programs are more than welcome to join us to see if you can help them to get their professional foot on the bottom rung of the ladder,
Yep.
so they can carry on down that path. And then once they've got a couple of years under their belt, of course, they're just going to be referred straight back into BeerOps again.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's not like we're surgically removing them from BeerOps. It's just we're putting them down a separate path where it's going to be more nutritious for them. And as a result, all of the sponsors and the attendees in the BeerOps event are going to be more able, more eased to have business conversations without some students coming up saying, "Have you got a job? Have you got a job? Have you got a
Yep.
job?" Yeah, so it
It's
makes
a
it
particular
makes it
cohort that
a
really
better
does need
experience
attention,
for
right?
all.
I'm a big fan of this because I think graduates and university students and anyone going through the education journey still, it's often hard to go to a tech conference or a tech event, or even in this case, Australia's largest tech networking conference, an event, and break that ice because they don't necessarily have the experience to speak to somebody and they feel that maybe they're going to get looked down on or treated differently. To have a whole cohort specifically
Hmm.
tailored to them, as you said, to provide like an entry point or an on-ramp for them to get into the space where there's a natural fit for them and there's the appropriate attention on them, I think is really, really powerful. And then, as you said, over the 1 or 2 years of going through that process and they get their degree, they get a first job, then they can come along and have a conversation with their birds of a feather and their peers, actually with some hands-on time on the keyboard, as it were. That's going to
Yep.
completely transform their experience as opposed to maybe coming to a big event, potentially feeling a bit left out and then not wanting to go to them again and then completely ruining the likelihood of ever coming to other events. So we'll come back into GradOps because I'm really excited about what we're going to do with that. But I just wanted to tease people that is something that's coming and particularly in the context of Melbourne. So events, dates, time. So October, I believe 22nd for Melbourne and 28th for Sydney. Is that right?
Yep, on the button.
And so the big thing for me now is how do people get on board? So from an attendee's point of view, what do you want them to do to be able to get in on the night?
So there's a couple of things that you need to do. You need to go to our website, beerops.io/events, plural. You'll be able to hopefully get yourself a ticket there. They do tend to sell out pretty damn quick.
Hmm.
So make sure that you get yourself a ticket. Then get yourself a plan. We are going to be communicating with you. You will know who the sponsors are and what their areas of expertise are. So you can make a plan for what your goals are. Are you going in to have a chat with the sponsors to make sure that you're up to speed, with latest and greatest technologies, service offerings? Are you going to go along there specifically to network with 5 or 10 new people? Excuse me.
Gesundheit
I
again.
go along there to basically just see how you can be of service. Maybe you're going along to meet a mentor, perhaps,
Yeah.
which is always a really smart idea as well. Maybe you want to help with the events as well. We are always looking for people who are looking to work with us, as in to organize and run the BeerOps and ExecOps behemoth. There must be a national team of 200 volunteers, something like that. So you will, by giving enough people what they want first, think about it. It's exactly the same
Yeah.
psychology by offering to help with the organization of the event. First of all, you're going to make sure that you actually get into the event. Two, you're going to meet all the movers and shakers behind it. Three, you're going to meet all of the sponsors. You're going to get in there nice and early. Your influence, your ability to, just to grow from a professional perspective. I can't recommend it strong enough. It's
Mm.
not easy, but it's very rewarding.
So I'm going to paraphrase that down to two things. One, register. There is a waiting list, I understand. So if for some reason you don't immediately get a confirmation you are on the waiting list, and if
Yep.
someone bumps off, you will. So number one, register. Just get in early. Number two, do some homework on who's turning up, sponsors, speakers, presenters, whatever, and make sure you come along with some good intent to ask questions. And the third element, as you said, is potentially put your hand up and offer to volunteer and participate. And it could be anything. I mean, there's a long list, and we won't get to know. There's a long list of things that you can do to help out, and they're not too onerous, right? So I think at the risk of maybe freaking people out and saying, "Oh, I don't want to put my hand up because I don't know what I'm up to," the list of things that I've seen people volunteer for could be literally half an hour here, 1 hour there, 2 hours there, whatever. Many hands make light work. So I think register, get on board. If you don't make it for some reason, you're on the wait list, there may be a potential to get onto it. Maybe become part of the ecosystem, do your homework, figure out who's coming along, prepare for it, get the most out of it, and put your hand up to volunteer. I think the other thing, just quickly, if I can, I'm sorry, with regard to the registration, even if you only get put on the wait list, there's a huge demand for these tickets, that immediately gets you on the mailing list so you know what's happening. And I think one of the things that people may not actually realize is you have tens of thousands of people in this ecosystem who come to the event or have come over the last 11 years, or this is the 11th year, who are still on the mailing list, still actively participating in things in social and digital spaces, whatever the case may be. I think that's a big part of it as well. So it's great if you can come to the event on the day, but if you, I think even if you're not actually able to make an event, jump in and get on the mailing list, because even if you're in an area where it's not Brisbane, Perth, Sydney, Melbourne immediately, if you're in an area where you can't physically get to the event, join the mailing list, because there's so much to get from the mailing list itself, as well as everything else that's coming. Um, so you've got Melbourne coming up, you've got Sydney after that. Um, for the other side of the coin, so we talked about attendees, register early, put your hand up, volunteer, look forward to things on the mailing list, do a bit of homework. There's going to be a lot of people tuned in who are thinking, I haven't yet gone and expressed interest to sponsor and participate in this. From a sponsorship point of view, what would you like people to do other than hand over bucket loads of cash? But in all seriousness, like if I'm thinking about it from a bronze, silver, gold sponsorship point of view, and different levels of entitlement around that and the entitlements that come with it, whether it's a BeerOps, ExecOps, what would you like people to do to reach out immediately saying, tell me what's available from a sponsorship point of view for both the BeerOps and ExecOps events, and what would you like them to be thinking about with regard to what they can bring to the table beyond obviously helping fund the event, because funding the event from a sponsorship is part of it, but the big part is really be there, bring your subject matter experts and participate and have a booth and do demos and other things. What would you like sponsors or potential sponsors to do to reach out, get in touch, have a conversation, and see how they can get on board?
Well, I would just, as you say, just reach out and have a chat. You know, we
Yeah,
are fairly human. We don't bite too much, and if you drop us, even like dropping us an email, hello@beerops.io, you know, we'll get back to you. Let's get that Zoom
yeah.
conversation sorted out. I want to hear before anybody sells anything. I hate the term selling. I'm a DevOps engineer, by the way. Like five, 5 days a week. Like I'm helping telcos and I'm doing
You
it
actually
all.
have a day job.
I've got the day job. This is
Yeah,
out of it. Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, so get in touch. I am rubbish at sales. I'm not going to sell anything to you, but what I am going to ask you is what your business problems are. I
Yeah,
want to hear where your business problems. I want to hear where you're measured, where there's a technology thing perhaps that is a bit wobbly, which is stopping you from achieving your goals. Your measurements are not good. You can't take the kids on holiday or whatever. I get me involved in those conversations
right.
because we'll get creative. We'll get the right level of sponsorship sorted out for you if it's appropriate, and you will understand how sponsoring will directly relate to helping to resolve the business problems that you've got. Just
Yeah,
engage.
yeah.
Who knows? Maybe there's nothing we've got that will be useful for you, but I guarantee there'll be a few things in there
You
that
never know unless you ask. So someone asked me to
exactly.
paraphrase it the other day, and I said it's really simple. If you are not in this thing, you are not in the conversation. If you're not in the conversation, you're not hearing or learning about what people are after. It's really that simple. You're either in the room or you're not. And if you're not there, don't blame us for not reaching out and asking how you can be part of it, whether it's a bronze, silver, or gold sponsorship, whether it's BeerOps and ExecOps. If you're not in this conversation, you're just not in the conversation. You're not going to meet any of these people. You're not going to be able to pitch to them. You're going to be able to do demos, and they're probably not even going to know about your brand. And there's some amazing companies. I've had the privilege of interviewing them. Once you do your amazing pitch deck. And one of the things I will say for you, again, at the risk of being sycophantic, is I don't think you sell. I think you just tell people. And this is the key thing that I've enjoyed, which is it's more about telling people what can be done, as you said, opening the door to see what's possible, versus selling and hard pitching. But I put it this way, it was really simple when someone asked me about it. So, why get involved in ExecOps in this case? I said, it's really simple. If you're not in the room, you can't be part of the conversation. Full stop. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I said, so then it's a case of What can you afford with regard to the types of things you want to get? Do you want the full bundle of a web TV interview and a feature article and broad digital and social amplification before the event, after the event, during the event? Do you want to be in the room? Do you want a speaker at the front of the room? These are things you can only get if you're in the room. And then it really just comes down to realistically what makes sense from a funding and budget point of view. And there's something that Stephen can do. And that kind of just completely changed their view. It was like, oh, okay, you're right. We need to get in that room. How do we do that? Um, Prior to that, I was like, well, do people even know about your brand? Do they know your brand exists? Do they know what your brand does? Do they know who the faces of the brand are? Who are the subject matter experts so you can make available to do demos, to talk about solving problems? Who have you got on your team that can pick up a whiteboard marker and draw some diagrams in my boardroom to tell me how you can solve my problems? Because if you're not in that room, I can't ask you the question. And you could just see the light bulb go on. And then it was a case of, right, well, where are we at the bronze, silver, gold funding level? And I think for me, that's the big thing. If people don't reach out now and ask the question of, well, what's on offer? How do we get in the room? Um, what is it going to cost to get on board for that? And what can we bring to the table? If they don't just make that outreach, then they shouldn't be blaming anybody but themselves when they learn afterwards how amazing the events are and they weren't part of it, because we can't just randomly guess that they exist. So I highly recommend that people reach out to you via any means, whether it's your email address or LinkedIn or through the website contact form, and ask that question, which is, how do we get in the room? Um, and my understanding is you'll send them an email with a bunch of things around a brochure with essentially a rate card, cost breakdown, a bunch of ideas on what they're at. And if they've got a number in mind, they can back backwards and forwards. But yeah, you can't get in the room. Sorry, you can't have a conversation if you don't get in the room. Get in the room, have that conversation. And remember, the conversation isn't just who's in the room, it's the tens of thousands of people in this ecosystem that are on the mailing list, on the forum conversations, eventually the virtual events and other things, and for years to come. It may be that you participate in this event in October, say in Sydney on the 28th, and then in 3 months' time, someone you met at that event says, hey, it's January, February, March 2026. We have the exact problem you said you could solve. Can you come and talk to us? That's not going to happen if you're not in the room, full stop. And I think that's the wake up call a lot of brands need to have, which is we are not going to get those outreaches 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the track if we're not in the room having the conversation, letting people know who we are, what we do, and how we can solve. So I ask people, please just get in touch, just get up to it. And even if you don't have the money to sponsor it this year, learn about it so you can get on board for next year. So we're going to have you back and we're going to talk a bit more about some of these things in more detail. We're certainly going to be talking about GradOps. We're also, just for our audience, going to have Stephen back and talk about the Melbourne event specifically, and then the Sydney event as well, where we'll put Stephen on the spotlight and under the spotlight and ask him to talk about some of the sponsors and who's coming and tease some of the subject matter experts. But in the meantime, Stephen, great to see you. Thanks for sharing a bit of insight on who you are, where you are, and how you came to form this event. I did like the fact that you did highlight you do have a day job. You've got a
Yeah.
professional career path and a family, and an amazing son who has special needs and needs the time and effort that comes with that. So you are juggling a great deal in your personal life and your professional life. So the fact that you can pull all this together as well as part of a community thing is just mind-boggling to me. I'm very proud to be a business partner with you and collaborating with you on this, and I think we're going to see some exciting things come of that next year as well. Thanks for making time to catch up with me today and talk about this. I think our audience is going to have a lot of fun with it. To close us out, what's the best way to learn more about BeerOps and ExecOps and get in touch with you to have a conversation about sponsorship?
I think there's probably a couple of things. I would be going on to LinkedIn and just
Mhm.
following the BeerOps page. I think we're like, we've got 10,000 followers or something there. So that's one of the channels that we propagate some information. I'd be maybe just going on to the BeerOps.io website, and there's a contact us. Just drop us a line.
Yep,
Hello@BeerOps.io is probably the best way just to
perfect.
start communicate.
Something for everyone. So if you want to do email, hello@beerops.io, beerops.io if you want to go and visit the website, learn more about it. Just go and look up BeerOps or just web search that and you'll find the LinkedIn page, etc. As you said, I highly recommend you follow that page and keep up to date with all the posts and comments and updates. I also invite people to jump on there and become part of that conversation on the social space, regardless of whether you're going to attend or not this year, or regardless of whether you're going to sponsor. Click follow, both on BeerOps and with Stephen, and just look at the updates, look at the posts that are coming out, and then comment. Share them with your community, give it a reshare, share it with a comment and saying, hey, I'm going along, are you coming along? And get your conversation going in your own feed. I know I've done that and got some great feedback. But just join that conversation, click follow, bookmark the website, and depending on whether you want to fill in a contact form on the website, reach out via email, or send an email directly through LinkedIn, any one of those will reach Stephen and his team. And whether it's Stephen or myself, someone will get back to you and help you get along that journey, particularly from sponsorship. Stephen, great to see you. Thanks for making time to catch up with me. And have a great week. Safe travels. We will have you back to talk about the Melbourne event and the Sydney event separately because they've got a lot of detail in there we want to lift out. But thanks so much for making time to share all of those insights. And I invite everybody to take all the questions you're going to have from today's conversation and send them to you via LinkedIn in comments and questions online there and get that conversation starting. I can't wait to see what we get from that. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to having you back on the show again soon to talk about Melbourne and Sydney soon.
Thanks, Les.
Cheers.